Another day, another referee gets unjustly abused. I'm Max, I'm over here at the Black Jersey, and thank you very much for clicking on this video. Today, I'm going to talk about how Johnny Sexton has received a 3-match ban but has been cleared to play in the Rugby World Cup. And long story short, before we start getting into the rant part of this video, I do think the ban should have been far longer. I'm not just going to have one set of rules for a particular person and another for another person. Johnny Sexton is not bigger than the game. He may be the Irish captain. He may have 100 test caps. He may be one of the top point scorers in the history of test rugby, but ultimately it's not ideal to undermine the authority of a referee, and that's why I've got a lot of problems with Sanzar, who are undermining the authority of World Rugby by having a different separate set of laws there, for the Rugby Championship and for Super Rugby, as compared to the Six Nations, the World Cup, so on, who actually play rugby properly. Anyway, this is from the BBC. I couldn't find any independent sources who were going to give us a full-on description. So just to give you guys the context, give you guys the best information I can, I'm just going to showcase this article so we can read through the information, then I can share my full thoughts on the situation, of course. But before we do that, thank you very much to my patrons, and remember to like and subscribe to me if you enjoyed the video. The headline is, Johnny Sexton, Ireland's captain given 3-match ban but clears to play in World Cup. Ireland captain Johnny Sexton has been given a 3-match ban that will see him miss his country's 3 World Cup warm-up matches. And so, long story short, Sexton is going to be going into the World Cup very undercooked and low on game time. It says that Sexton, 38, is not allowed to play in the fixtures against Italy, England and Samoa, but will be available for Ireland's World Cup opener against Romania on 9th September. The punishment was given after he admitted misconduct towards match officials following Leinster's Heineken Champions Cup final defeat by La Rochelle in May. The European Professional Club Rugby Disciplinary Committee found Sexton's behaviour confrontational and aggressive towards and disrespectful of the match officials. Leinster, who Sexton plays for, of course, they've also been handed a suspended fine of €7,500, I believe that is. Is that euros or pounds? I can't quite see. My phone, which I'm reading off, is a bit far away from me. Yeah, so that's £7,500. Both the club and Sexton have the right to appeal against the decisions, which must be done by 4 p.m. BST on Wednesday. The fly half, who intends to retire after the World Cup in France, missed the final on the 20th through injury, but enters the pitch after the match, which definitely isn't ideal, but at least the cameras weren't rolling. Leinster lost 27-26, absolute nail-biter of a final in the Dublin final, and Sexton became involved in an exchange with South African referee Jaco Paper and other match officials following the game. He appeared by video conference call before an independent disciplinary panel chaired by Christopher Quinlan KC. He's a Kiwi. This was on Thursday. Ireland's opening World Cup warm-up match is against Italy on 5th August, followed by matches with England and Samoa on 19th and 26th August respectively. Their first World Cup game is 9th September against Romania in Bordeaux. And so basically, I've made an entire video dedicated to how Sexton is a very calm and collected player when everything's flowing. It was basically a story about how his career's progressed and why today he's the most effective 10 in world rugby. But before the World Cup starts, he'll be heading into that tournament having played no rugby since late March, early April-ish. He did come off in the Grand Slam win against England with a bit of a lower leg injury, and so he has missed a fair bit of rugby since then. Since that test, he has not played a match, and so he'll effectively be going straight from a Six Nations without all that time playing a match at all, and then he'll of course be appearing there against Romania, and while it serves him right, you just can't do that. It reminds me a fair bit of 10 years ago or so when Dylan Hartley lost his place in the 2013 British and Irish Lions for swearing at Wayne Barnes there on the television, and you just simply don't do that. I do think that it's fair enough that Dylan Hartley at the time received a far longer ban, because it's the telly, kids are watching. That's why as a Christian I refuse to use profanity in my videos, and if I do mess up, well then there's always the bleep we're gonna have afterwards. But Sexton over here, it's fair enough that it's not that long. Even though Sexton has had a few head knocks throughout his career, this has resulted in him having a short fuse when things aren't going his way. And so even though most of the time he's calm collected, when things do aggravate him, indeed he does have that short temper. And so Sexton is an example of why referees need to be really vigilant on the laws of the game. Sexton is one of the great players, but I'm hoping that what we've seen here, this outburst, isn't going to be a long thing throughout his career, because I've seen the guy... I've seen him exit the field many a time, and I'm really, really crossing my fingers that his health is going to be in a good state post-retirement, because when he gets into another career, I really just hope that those injuries from rugby, he's had so many of them, aren't going to impact his life long term. But it's no excuse for abusing somebody for just trying to do their job. If Sexton felt the referee did something wrong, they can talk privately, they can have a yarn over email, they can have a Zoom meeting, they can go over footage, things like that, after everything's kind of subsided, once the emotions have passed, and just do everything far more calmly. That's why I didn't make a video when I was expressing how annoyed I was at the abuse Ben O'Keefe copped after the Super Rugby final, because I knew that you need to let everything sink in, you need to digest what's happened, and you need to say what you think after you've got the facts. That's why my post-match analysis do seem to come out a little bit later than collaborators of mine such as Rugby Analyst and Haka Time Rugby, who those two can see everything very quickly. But though I can do that too, I just want to check over and over and over, because I want to know the full story. And now that we know the full story of the Sexton thing, I do think it should have been twice as long. Just 3 matches, don't you think it's a bit pathetic? £7,500, don't you think that's a little bit pathetic? Sure, it was behind closed doors, didn't happen in front of the camera, Sexton said nothing on YouTube, anything on Facebook, anything on Twitter, but it's still not ideal. Referees' authority, without them, you don't get a game, full stop. Sure, you can debate whether a player performed well, you can debate whether a coach is doing his job well, but when you're going as seriously to do this with a referee, you're really trying to bring the game into disrepute, and that's why there's certain creators I will not collaborate with, because you need to just keep the game intact and you need to keep its reputation alive. With a senior player doing something like this to a referee, some of the, let's just say, the moon landing theorists, if you're giving them information, it's not exactly a good look for the game. Sexton should have been banned for twice the time. He should miss 6 matches, so that way Ireland have a huge disadvantage before the World Cup quarterfinals, and Sexton is totally undercooked. I'm pretty sure they would have wrapped him in cotton wool even without the ban, but I would like to see him very undercooked for the quarterfinal as a punishment for his actions, because when you do the crime, you do the crime. I'm also hoping that Leinster makes Sexton pay that fine himself, because come on mate, we all know the sentence should have been directly to Sexton, there, in terms of the fine, and the fine should have been twice as what it already was. In fact, since we're talking about 6 matches, why not make it a sixth of Sexton's yearly salary or something like that? Because when things like this happen, you need to crack down on it hardcore. I'm so sick of just removing these horrible death threats towards referees from my comment sections. I'm so sick of being called the names for just trying to stick up to the refs, because how much of a hypocrite would I look like if I was bashing refs, and yet people, as they would do, they'd say my wife's obviously a referee. How much of a hypocrite would I look like? Sexton is one of the best players in the world, and so when he does stuff like that, he's going to seriously influence people. It's absolutely bullcrap. The sentence should have been far longer. It should have been twice its amount. It should have been 6 games, and the fine, it should have been double what it is, and it should have gone to Sexton. I'm not going to apologise for saying that. Just because I revere Sexton's playing ability so much does not mean I respect what he did towards the referees. It was despicable, it's not on, and to be totally honest, it's just not a good look for the game. World Rugby, you messed up. I get that it definitely deserves to be a shorter one than that of Dylan Hartley's from 10 years ago, because it didn't happen on the TV, it won't influence as many people, it'll simply just influence some of the moon landing theorists, like I said before, but still, Influence is influence and it eventually spreads in some form and in some way. I don't respect the actions of Sexton in this instance at all, and if you do respect it, it's fine, you're allowed to disagree with me, but just don't go too ridiculously hard on these beliefs, because guys, we got to keep the comment section clean because we don't want to encourage any more incidences like this. There are already people saying that the World Cup's going to be cost by a referee, so instead of celebrating Sexton's actions, we got to come together, say to World Rugby, you messed up mate, ban him for twice the amount of 6 matches. That's going to be the end of the video over here guys, so make sure you like this video and subscribe to me if you enjoyed it. I'm also over on Instagram, I'm over on Threads, so you can support me over there. Thank you very much for watching the video guys. My name's Max and I'm going to end the video here. Cheers for watching, see you later.